You're watching Guude. You're watching Guude. Fighting just to save our lives. Got you laughing every night.
Welcome back, everybody.
Welcome back.
Still no babies.
Nope, still no. Well, there's still one baby.
Well, that's true. Well, he's not a baby no more.
It's true. It's true. Until the next one's born, he will be a baby.
Okay.
I mean,
I ain't buying.
once the next one's born, then he is big brother.
Huh.
Yeah. So yeah, it's still kind of hanging out, waiting. Seeing
You know, there was something I was thinking. The moment we start recording, I'm gonna ask Jeff this thing, and boy, that shit's gone from my head.
Was it about babies?
I don't know what it was about. I don't think it was about the babies. Baby.
So, in case this triggers anything, I have a baby-related thing to talk about. Actually, it's more of a child-related thing, not really a baby-related thing per se. And I've touched on this before.
Don't touch on babies, Jeff.
I'm oh God, don't get this channel flagged. Like people watching me, like, oh, touching babies, huh? No, it was funny. I was actually my son.
No, it's
normally,
never funny, Jeff. Sorry.
my son normally likes to sleep. Like he doesn't want blankets and stuff on him. He always likes to take his socks off and his slippers off because he wants his bare feet, even no matter how cold it is. Like that's just how he rolls. I don't know why. And all of a sudden tonight, I was putting him to bed, and he was like, "Where's my blanket?" And I was like, "Okay, here's your blanket." And he's like, "Put it on me." And I was like, "Okay." So I put the blanket over top of him. He's like, "My toes sticking out, toes sticking out." And I was like, "Okay." So I bundled him up essentially in his little bed, which is like usually he freaks out when you try to put a blanket over him. He kicks it all off and wants to be.
I mean, it is fucking cold outside. So
well, his room's not like super cold. I was wondering, like, is something like, is there a breeze coming in the window or something like that? But so I do this, and then he's like, okay, and he's sitting there. And I see his hands. He like curls them up onto his chest because he wants his hands covered up too. But then it wasn't a big blanket. It's like a little like a kid's blanket type of deal. It's not like covering his entire body. And I was like, if you want your hands in there, you have to put your hands on your chest because you can't just have them flopping above your head to put your hands in there. The blanket's not big enough. And he puts his hands in there, and then I see his hands move like down, and I was like, and he kept pulling the blanket up, so it kept uncovering his feet, and he kept being like, my feet are sticking out, and I was like, well, you gotta leave it alone if you wanted to go in there. And I finally got him like all situated. I realized I was like, where are your hands, buddy? He goes, playing with my penis.
Oh my God.
I looked, he literally had stuck them both down the front of his diaper, and like it was holding his penis.
Oh God.
I was like, oh good Lord. So that was kind of funny. But what I was getting at was I was reading him books and stuff to go to sleep. And we've talked about children's books before. And there's some really good children's books out there. Like, and really good, like, 1-year-old books, 2-year-old books. And then there's some that are just absolutely terrible for different perspectives. And one is we have this old nursery rhyme book, and it's amazing to see like how terrible nursery rhymes were. Like Jack and Jill. You remember the nursery rhyme of Jack and Jill?
Yeah.
What do you remember about that nursery rhyme?
Jack and Jill go up a hill to fetch a pail of water. Jack fell down and broke his crown. Jill came tumbling after.
Okay. Is that it?
There's more. The rest of it's never like that important though.
Well, this book has all of the verses of it. I'm assuming all the verses. I don't know how many there are. There's verses that basically, when you get to the end of the Jack and Jill saga, Jill essentially gets beaten up by her parents for laughing at Jack for rolling down the hill.
Damn, I don't remember that part.
And I was like, maybe we won't read this nursery rhyme book anymore. Like it's kind of weird. But so that's one reason that things can get a little like weird with the nursery or the kids books. The other one is just there's a Thomas book. So Thomas the Train Engine.
Oh God, I hate Thomas.
And my son loves Thomas for some odd reason. And we've never like watched Thomas, or we didn't before he knew about Thomas. He just got really obsessed with like trains. And I don't know if the nanny showed him Thomas or what, but he was obsessed with Thomas. He loves Thomas. He loves just trains in general and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this book about Thomas, and it's a really short book, and it starts out with like, Thomas was in the stall with the other trains, but couldn't sleep. He looked up at the night sky and saw a shooting star. I'm like, okay, this is kind of a cool concept. It's like, Thomas wanted to go find the shooting star, so he went down the tracks. He saw a light. Turns out it wasn't a shooting star. It was the light of his friend Percy. Thomas got tired and went back to the station.
What's wrong with this book?
What? There's nothing. Like, what is the substance?
I mean, that's it, Jeff. There wasn't he couldn't find the shooting star, and so he went back home.
So he found his friend Percy and then got tired and went home and went to...
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, you could have at least like finalized it somehow with like, there's a, shooting stars are a rare occurrence, and he was lucky to have seen it one time. Like, he goes to sleep knowing he was happy to have seen the shooting star, or something like that. There was just nothing else about it again. It was, he got tired and went home. The end of the book.
Thomas is awful, in my opinion. I hate Thomas, so I mean, I'm not defending
Is it
Thomas.
because of stories like that? Like the lack
Thomas
of
is
character
just
development?
weird. Have you ever watched the actual cartoons?
No,
Because
I've never watched the cartoons.
So, what do you think Thomas's voice would be like? If you imagine Thomas speaking, what do you think he'd sound like? Like, what age do you think he sounds?
Like an 8-year-old boy or something like that?
That's what I would have thought too, but that's certainly not what Thomas sounds like. Hello,
Really?
I am Thomas the Tank. Or Thomas
Really?
the Train. Like, he's a grown-ass man.
Yeah, I guess I would have definitely assumed it was like a younger voice because he's supposed to be like a younger train, right?
I don't know. He's a grown-ass man in the show.
Huh. He's got a lot to learn from being a grown-ass
Well, yeah,
man.
right. You think he's a kid, but he ain't no kid. Thomas.
Yeah, such as how to not be a train. He's a grown-ass man. He's gone wrong.
Yeah, I don't know. I just don't like Thomas.
Did that trigger anything in your mind?
No, I don't know what I was going to talk about. It wasn't that nothing to a kid, so.
Well, that's unfortunate because at first you said you didn't know about it to do. Now it didn't have to do.
Yeah, well, I don't remember it ever. I don't think it had to do with kids. I could be wrong because I don't remember what it was. But I feel like it wasn't about kids.
So then, another topic that I would love to discuss because I was just talking to my wife about this because I just heard it on an NPR story and I've heard it before and I'm not sure. I'm curious in your thoughts of it. We've talked about before the things about the term like secretary and how it's become like a derogatory term in like the office business, but it's really still a high level position with like the government and all that stuff, but it roots back to like I don't know, men like sleeping with their secretaries or something like that. Like,
Right.
I don't know. We talked about that before. What do you think about the term of talking about somebody who does not have a home as being homeless?
That's what they are, right?
So there's a big push that it's almost like, and I'm saying the word derogatory. I'm not sure if that's the word. I know there's a push.
I don't see the word homeless as a negative word. I'm gonna say that much.
I don't see it as a negative word either. But there's a real big push to talk about people not referring to them as homeless, but to refer to them as a person experiencing homelessness.
Whatever.
And I guess a part of it is because they'd say like it's a temporary experience that this person is having that you're trying to give them positive outcomes to be able to come out from or whatever. But I never knew being homeless was considered the stating of being homeless was considered derogatory or like it's negative. Experiencing homelessness is negative as well because you don't have a home, but not from the aspect of not having a home. It's not saying that you're worse than somebody else as a person because you're homeless.
Right.
I'm so lost on the need to change terminology to I'm not sure who it's appeasing.
I'm sure it's not the homeless people because they don't give a fuck. If you want to talk about shit, let's talk about how we're gonna get them a home. not about
Oh, I mean,
how we're going to define their situation.
Well, I would agree, but it makes me wonder. Like, so if a homeless
You got a lot of
person
items
is
on the
not
ground
allowed to,
right now.
probably. I mean, my inventory is not full. I don't know if I've picked up. I've picked up everything I've walked by. I guess there's a lot down there that I.
Okay, I'm getting a lot of.
Whoa,
frames.
God, skeleton! Woo-wee. Hold on, I gotta fly away.
Woo-wee.
I went down to get that stuff and took a lot of fall damage, but I knew I was going to take that, and then a skeleton started shooting me. I was not expecting that, so I was not in a health situation that was.
Yeah, no, I've never heard
thing.
this, but I think that's one of those some people with too much spare time on their hands.
Well, and that's what. Are you a person who's experiencing home ownership?
I mean, if we're defining this now, I guess that's what we are.
Well, and it's so weird because I talked to my wife about it, who thinks that it's completely appropriate to change this terminology because it is a bad thing to tell somebody. It's like, because the concept, I guess, is that you're somehow, with the way words work, you're defining that person by being homeless, as opposed to an experience that they're having in life.
The truth is, a lot of homeless people aren't in some temporary situation. They're long term.
Well, but ignoring that, let's say, even if pretend it was temporary for everybody, that'd be a great thing if it was temporary for everybody that ever experienced it. Sure, but is that even still? Does it matter if it's temporary or not? On the fact of at the current time. Like, I just don't get where we're going, and it makes me concerned about words that I use. Am I going to walk into a meeting and say something and get, be thought of as I'm being derogatory because I didn't know that certain words have now changed their course? I
mean, yeah, that definitely happens. Like, I remember we used to call each other retarded all the time, and now people flip the fuck out and use that word. Well, and I remember,
I think people always flip the fuck out over that one. I
don't think they did. I don't think they did.
I remember that being a very bad thing to say when I was in elementary school.
My my best friend in high school is gay, and we used to call each other fag all the time, and just
right.
But we didn't mean it mean or anything like that. It was just something that you said. I can understand why that needed to change. But it changed without anyone informing me until I was getting chastised.
So you're basically saying you didn't think it was a bad thing to say, even though you understand why it is now. But you said it and got so basically some nasty looks / talking tos from people later in life.
Right. Honestly, it was in YouTube comments. That's how far it went for me. Me and Palin.
Well, of course it went. Of course it went that far because you've then expanded your audience to outside of your social circle to people who have now going to have this. Oh God, I guarantee I'm going to have a lot of comments from people talking about how they can't believe that I don't understand why homeless is a derogatory word and experiencing homelessness is obviously the way it's supposed to be. Guaranteed. Because somebody probably who watches this video is related to somebody who made this push or something,
Right.
The social circle has expanded once it gets out there on the interwebs.
Right. Yeah. But yeah,
I don't know.
I guess what I'm saying is maybe we are wrong about this. It doesn't seem like as big of an issue. And I don't want to say I'm insensitive to people that are homeless. That's actually one of the few charities I've always wanted to find one that I could support. And the only time I've ever volunteered it was at homeless shelters. So yeah, I don't want to sound insensitive to the homeless, but I feel like it even rolls off your tongue better. The homeless versus the people that are currently experiencing homelessness. And now I feel like I'm writing a damn paper.
Well, and that's the funny thing is, so when I said I heard this on NPR, and I'd heard it before, I didn't hear it because they were talking about why the homeless terminology is bad. They were doing a story on people experiencing homelessness, and they kept using that phrase, and it was so unnatural to listen to when they said it that it kept sticking out in my mind every time, and I was like, this is just, it sounds weird the way that they're doing this story, because it doesn't sound
right.
Right, and that's why it stuck out to me so much. And I started wondering, like, and I'm still one of those people who don't think the term secretary is a derogatory term.
I don't think it
I
is
understand
either.
bad things happened back in the day with secretaries, and there was like a quote unquote not expectation. That's not the word I'm gonna say. But when people talk about secretaries, there might have been a lot of like that's what's going on at that office or whatever. But I think that was just because of things that happen with people who coincidentally were in those roles. It doesn't mean those roles have become derogatory terms by any stretch of the imagination.
Right. I agree.
But so I don't know, but we were in a meeting today. We're like renewing our visitation policy at my hospital to try to, it's right now. It's a little clunky. Like sometimes it just needs to be updated. And at one point it talks about in there how you have the right to have your spouse or significant other. And there's parentheses and it says same sex or opposite sex. And it's to accommodate people who are in, sex marriages or domestic partnerships or whatever, to make it show that your spouse is allowed to be here, whether they're man, woman, whatever, like they're allowed to be here with you. And somebody asked today, and this was a good thing for them to ask, and they said, aren't we progressive enough at this point where we don't need to specify same sex or opposite sex? Let's just take that out, and it's just that's the way it is today. And many people, including myself, said, no, I would rather it be called out in there, because you're going to put this policy out there and somebody who doesn't agree with it is going to try to push their values unless it's explicitly written.
Yeah.
That it can be there. And so that was good that somebody's asking the opposite questions too and saying, it's basically terminology. When somebody used to say spouse, it meant their, opposite sex legal partnership, and that is not what that term means anymore. And I guess it technically never has meant that, but a lot of people took it that way. So that's one of those ones that has changed for the better.
Right. Speaking on that, did you see that the Supreme Court?
Yes. Which didn't the Supreme Court already ban it? And if we don't know what you're talking about, we're talking about the fact that the Supreme Court upheld Trump's ban on transsexuals in the military.
Right.
So I thought they had already said, no, this is unconstitutional. And it was the end of the story.
I think it was other courts had decided that, but I don't think it made it to the Supreme Court yet. Is what I thought, but I could be wrong.
So Kavanaugh got to weigh in.
What's funny about that is whenever we had the Kavanaugh hearings, Kavanaugh goes on record saying that this is absolutely not something he would vote yes on. So it's real good that we vetted that guy real good, and that he wasn't a complete fucking piece of garbage liar.
You saw it was in the news about him too, though, right? And that they're gonna go through the hell is it? They are pretty sure he was committed perjury during the hearings and stuff.
Yeah, we do that then.
Well, we do that then, but it looks like there's a group that's pretty confident they're going to take it up and actually launch an investigation into it.
Can they do anything at this point?
I don't know.
It's a lifetime
They were talking about
being able to
rescind. They talked about being able to rescind it, but it was just a news article, so I don't really.
I don't think they can. I don't think there's anything you can do. But technically, apparently Roger Goodell can overturn the decision of a football game that happened this weekend, and there's a lawsuit about that now too. I don't know who Roger Goodell is.
Roger Goodell is the NFL commissioner.
Oh.
And that was one of the playoff games this weekend. Since you don't watch football, you don't know. There was a very, 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 very controversial non-call, a very clear pass interference that would have ended the game and one team would have won the game, that didn't get called, and the other team ended up winning the game because they ended up getting the ball and taking it to overtime and winning. Whereas that call, had it happened, would have basically taken the clock down to 0 and the one team would have won.
Mm-hmm. So
many replays show that. I mean, such a clear, there's no reason this ever should have not been called a penalty. And just some guy decided today, it's the city of New Orleans against the NFL is trying to sue on behalf of seasons pass holders to have the NFL commissioner relook at it, because I guess there's some obscure rule where the NFL commissioner really can go back and either overturn the entire game, declare another team the winner, force them to go replay a game, or force them to line back up a certain time on the clock. There's some really weird stuff. None of it will ever happen, but there's a lawsuit about it.
Interesting. So since we've probably pissed off a few people with a couple controversial things, I got some to add to it. Today in my Discord, I have a politics channel in my Discord, which, I mean, that in itself is just like asking for fucking a mess. But I've fought against my mods to get rid of it on a couple of occasions, and it still remains. I don't know why I do this, but anyways, so today they were talking about abortion.
Wait, your mods wanted you to get rid of it, and you don't want to, or you were trying to tell them to get?
No. What you said the first time, yeah, the mods wanted to get rid of it, and I.
You're like, fuck you, mods. Go moderate that crazy shit.
No, I tell them not to. I actually tell them not to moderate it, but they bring up a good point that we can't leave it unmoderated either. So it is kind of a weird mess.
You could.
I mean, you could, but we also don't want people in there doing things that are hateful towards others. Like rules need to apply to all channels, so to speak. You know what I mean? But it's also hard.
I get you.
I mean, it's hard whenever, you know, moderator has one stance and vice versa. Granted, you know, kind of like whenever you and I were live streaming and we or did videos, we realized it's surprising the number of people who hold different opinions that watch us religiously actually are out there. So sometimes I'm surprised by that. But
yeah, because you tend to think that people like, yeah, it's one of those things that if you're a Democrat sitting there and watching religiously Fox News, which granted I think they should. I want people to see all sides of any opinion, so I really do think people should. But for the most part, you know, Democrats are watching, you know, CNN or whatever, and Republicans are watching Fox News. That's just the way it works because you kind of go with your like-minded people. I didn't realize. I was very shocked that there were so many people not of the same mindset that we were that watch our channels.
I watch a lot of Hannity because I guess I hate myself. I don't know. But I mean, I don't listen to anything he says and go, you know what? You have a point, Sean. I don't think that's ever happened. I
definitely have. When I watched some Fox News stuff, I've definitely been like, you know what? I understand that point where they're coming from.
I mean, Hannity's not news though. Hannity's
that's very true. Hannity's more like, God, what was it? The term shock jock? Is that what the term was back in the day?
Yeah. I think that's good. Like,
I'm gonna take the beacon down, by the way.
Okay.
Right now, because I need to move it. So, are you doing anything that needs the beacon?
No. I'm trying to get us like up to date with the.
You silk touch on the beacon? We don't, right?
No. But so there was a discussion about abortion today, and for the most part, everyone in my Discord is pro-choice, but there's a handful of pro-life people in there as well. But I presented my opinion on abortion, and I upset one of my moderators, which I knew I would because her and I have had this conversation before. But I have a problem with one aspect of abortion, and I don't think that there is a solution to the thing I have a problem with. But anyways, so I'm going to get your opinion on it. I have a problem.
Guys, in case you wanted controversy, you came to the right place.
Yep. Here we go, everybody. Buckle your seatbelts.
Let's do it.
So I have a problem, and I don't know a solution with our current where we're at medically. But I don't think it's right that if there's an accidental pregnancy and the dad wants to keep the child and is willing to support that child, I don't think it's right that the mother gets full decision on making on this. I understand. I understand where you're coming from. As a man, I think it's a different conversation that we're gonna have if you have this with women versus if you have it with men, and that's not to say because gender differences, blah blah. It's because literally it is putting all the rights are in a woman's court on this, and I understand the arguments for it's her body, but it's still quote unquote my child. Right. It took both of our bodies to create this child. 50% of that's me, 50% that's you. I understand you have to carry the child, and
and that's where things get really interesting too, is because the women have no counter argument. I can't say counter argument, but there's nothing that they can do to us that they can force us to do something for the next 9 months that we don't want to do.
Right.
So I understand that aspect of it as well.
But they also have the ability, if we flip the script and let's say the man wants the abortion, the women can say, nope, keeping the baby.
That's where it gets really...
And it gets worse because not only do they keep the baby, they're locking you into an 18-year fucking support system. Like, you are now responsible to support this child that you didn't want for the next 18 years.
Oh, here's the problem with something like this, though, is that there really is no good answer to this question.
I know the
because
only good answer.
no matter what, you fucking somebody over.
The only good answer is if we had sustainable like pods or surrogates that we could move the baby into something so that the dad could have a say. That's the only medically we're not there yet, basically. Because I understand, what if the mom didn't want to keep the baby? Then there's but she agrees to do it or whatever, or was forced legally to do it if that was even a possibility. And then there's complications and the mom dies. Like that. I totally understand the argument. But I don't like it.
Well, and it's one of those things as well. Is there a way to say that if you can somehow find out who the father is, and you know for a fact if the father is beforehand, he says, "I want an abortion." You say, "I do not want an abortion," and as the woman, then you can somehow. The legal thing is, if you can't come to an agreement, you can keep carrying the child to term as long as you have now written something that says you are abolishing him from the requirements of, raising the child and all this stuff because...
Yeah, see, I thought about that too while I was sitting there stewing on it when I wasn't even chatting anymore. I was just thinking about it in my own head. The problem with that is that deadbeat dads then get a 100% get out of jail free card where they can just always go oh, I didn't want the kid before the kid's born, and then say, oh, I want an abortion. And then
I'm I said, there's no good answer. There's no good answer to this one. I guarantee people in the comments are going to flip out either way because this is one of those debates that's it's like, I remember back in the 2006, was that a election year? 2006?
No. Well, I mean, it was an election year of some sort, but it wasn't a presidential election year.
Well, so presidential election was in 2004 then?
Yeah, 2008.
No, I think it was the 2004 election. That was very heavily the arguments for either candidate were based on both gay rights and pro-choice versus pro-life. John Kerry, was that 2004 or 2008? I don't remember.
2004 would have been John Kerry because we elected.
Okay, so I think it was the John Kerry election, and it was very heavily based on, one candidate was very much for anti-gay, pro-life, and the other candidate was very pro-choice, gay marriage and stuff. And that was very, heated debates with people because of what it was.
Right. I don't know if you remember.
So, I think that's what you get into. Ooh. I uncovered some of that.
Yeah, my mod's point of view was that you can't, you can never have control over someone else's body. But to me, the woman is getting full control over your child's body by getting full decision making in this. So I don't know. Right,
which does cause the problem as when you're speaking from the perspective of, and that's the thing is the women, and this isn't, God, this is going to sound so terrible, but it's not supposed to be derogatory toward women at all. Women look at it as a viewpoint of you can't control my body, but there's so much more to it than that.
It's a really shitty situation. That dad, there's no father's rights pre-birth, basically, and that's right. Wrong. But I don't know how to fix it.
I don't think you can.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, we're still behind in father's rights post-birth, honestly. And I think that is part of it. I think that the mentality starts pre-birth, and that's why we have the post-birth lack of father's rights. Maybe.
I get you. I definitely think that in general, women have way more rights when it comes to the child. And I think that's been proven multiple times over in multiple different, child custody hearings with a lot of people, is the woman usually, and I'm sure there's going to be people in the comments who are the exception to the rule, and I get it. But you usually hear about the woman basically has a much better chance of getting full custody than the man does.
Yeah, my lawyer was talking to me about the judge in my county. He actually just retired, But he said that the statistic is 80% of all cases that he has heard where both parents wanted custody, the mother got it. So 80% of the time he gives it to the mother. So he's like, so if we do fight for custody, you have a 20% chance of winning, just so you know, no matter what you bring to the table.
Do I think that eventually is going to start to even out in the next like 15 to 20 years? I do. I think it will. I think we are a progressive society that is going to go that direction, but we're not there yet.
It's just so infuriating to me because, like, I don't know. Infuriating is what I meant to say.
Well, because you're a male with a child who's gone through a divorce. Of course it is.
Well, like, right, but like, I mean, I feel like if I could bring the evidence to show like how much more I do for my child versus the mother, like that should be clear cut. It should be cut and dry. Like, why is it not cut and dry?
Yeah, should be.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what there is to say. Should be. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, you could have the same debate about some of the policies put into place, like both Democratic and Republican side. Like some things you always look at and you're like, what the fuck is this all about?
Right.
Like it doesn't even make sense. It doesn't even like offer the right thing. Policies that we have at work, some of them you're like, what? The things I get taxed on, I'm like, what the fuck? It's like you say that about everything. Like nothing is perfect in some things, but some things are not perfect to a point. And I'm not saying that it's because they're less wrong, but it's not perfect to a point where you're like, whatever, I can live with that. It's not that big of a deal.
Right.
But then there's some of those things that are said about things that are much more major of a deal to you, and you're like, you got a problem here, you know?
Right. Yeah, I'm glad I've just never been in that situation where wanting a child and that was another argument we had was one of my mods was like, whenever we were having this argument and I was saying that the dad should get the right, she's like, you should have put a condom on. I'm like, whoa, the burden of fucking contraceptive falls solely on the man now. Like, if the woman knew she didn't want a baby, why wasn't she on birth control? Like, and there's women condoms even, and like, what?
Right, as well as the fact that condoms break.
Well, that was my other thing. I was like, condoms break.
Or is that just the risk that you run? I mean, is that what is the argument? That's the risk you run?
I guess. I don't know. Like, whenever me and Renee were still dating, she was on birth control. I wore a condom every time, and we used the little spermicide injectable things. So we took 3 different precautions, and then she missed 2 periods, and I was like, and before we even had sex, too, we had the abortion talk. I was like, what's your stance on abortion? And she's like, I'm fine with people who have abortions, but I would never do it. So I knew that. And whenever she thought there was a possibility she was pregnant, I was like, so about that abortion stance, is there any leeway in that? Because I don't want a kid with someone I've only known a few months. Luckily, she wasn't pregnant, so this never had to be a thing.
Well, why didn't you wrap it up, Guude? And if you did wrap it up, why didn't you? Yeah. Why didn't she use a spermicidal lubricant as well? And if you did use a spermicidal lubricant as well, why didn't you pray?
Right. Yeah. Well, now that we've triggered everyone, we're out of time.
We're gonna have so few viewers after a while. Actually, no, it's funny. It's gonna be one of those things that this is like our view counts are just gonna ridiculously increase the more controversial we get, and it's just gonna be hate comments, but way higher view counts.
Oh God,
we're gonna Sean Hannon.
Oh no. Well, thanks for watching, everyone.
All right, guys, we'll see ya.